If you've been following along, you've been seeing that we're adding Franken PHP to our server-side up PHP Docker images. But we ran into a very interesting question. How much faster is Franken PHP compared to something like PHP FPM? How do you even test it? So Dan and I went back and saw a gap in the Laravel community that we could potentially fill with an open source application called BenchKit. BenchKit will be a standardized Laravel application that will allow us to run hardware tests with Geekbench. We'll be able to do network speed tests with Cloudflare, and then we'll run a standardized version of PHP tests against Laravel and see on how much faster is it actually performing narrowed down to requests per second. Now, before we dive deeper into BenchKit, we want to take this opportunity because this is a completely open and publicly accessible application. We just want to show you the process and how we build apps. This is the exact process we use for our customers, and it might help improve your own projects as well. Let's take a look at where the process begins, and we'll circle back to what we plan to implement with BenchKit. Every application and feature that we add to a project goes through this process. And you're looking at this probably going, this is exactly what we follow. It's nothing too complicated. But we take this with a special approach and strategy to make sure that we make the app feel as tangible as possible before moving to the next step. So we spend a lot of time in design and documentation. Now, I'm not some sort of unicorn where I can do UI UX right inside of a code editor and just kind of roll with it. Some are, but the way that we work is we'll spend our time in Figma to make it feel tangible enough, not over detailing things. And then we just document how it should work either within Figma, we use Notion, and also GitHub projects. Once we have everything ready and we communicate things out, then we roll into development, which can be just done in any sort of IDE. Once the developer has that feature ready, we make them push up to a staging server and we break the testing down into two phases. So the first one we call QA1, which means we're getting over the it worked on my machine and they're forced to test it on the staging server and go through every development specification, check things off. Then once it goes to QA2, this is something that will never be performed by the developer who created the feature. It's very important that we kind of get a new perspective on the features and just try running through that entire development specification again. And we use our own internal tool called Bugflow, which we're working on as well. And then once we have everything ready and QA2 approves everything, that's when we finally launch it and we deploy all of our applications with another tool that we wrote called Spin. So let's take a real life working example of this process and also use it as an opportunity to explain what BenchKit will be all about. If you look at our GitHub, I have a pull request created here, and this is just going to establish our base branch for the release, and this will give us a single source of truth to work within. I like to use the top comment to organize everything. So we go through the problem, we link to our GitHub projects, which is our project scope. I have the design assets included so people can get in there and look there. I like to include a nice little preview to know exactly what we're working with. And the most important thing on this is to have a CI CD process built that when we're committing to this branch, that it's automatically building and giving us a single source of truth for the application. So this is great because with using Docker, anybody can have any preference of their operating system. And we know that our development environment is going to exactly match our production environment. And as we're building on top of this, reducing any changes across those environments speeds up our development process dramatically. So let's see what BenchKit is all about. Starting with our problem, we created server-side up PHP and added a new variation of offering Franken PHP. And we truly just want to understand how much faster is Franken PHP compared to PHP FPM and Nginx. And we need an application that is disposable and repeatable to standardize benchmark tests that help us understand PHP performance tuning with Laravel. So our entire project will be built around this problem to make sure that we're not scope creeping ourselves and taking forever to build this. So I have everything organized in our GitHub projects. And you can see that I've already got a head start here, but looking under each task, I divided out each page. And this is helpful for Dan because as he goes through and develops this, he will check off these boxes. And this gives us a full perspective on what's the progress of the item as he's developing it. But it's also nice that when it gets into testing, when he does his QA1, he'll go through and uncheck all these and recheck them and make sure that everything is working. And then the same thing with once it goes to QA2, we make sure that everybody's taking a look at this and it's behaving the way that we want it to be. So diving into BenchKit, this is the main page of BenchKit, and you can see that we have this your environment area all listed out for you. And this is great because as you're changing PHP configurations, you can confirm on what PHP is seeing before you run the benchmark. And what's really nice is since this is going to be based off of server-side.php, our PHP Docker images, you can just change most of these settings just by using an environment variable and quickly see on how Laravel reacts to what you changed. Now, looking down below, I have all of the details listed out, and this is where I'm very grateful I spent the time in Figma. So taking a look at this, I had to come up with this whole input design and which settings need to do what. And this is great because it allowed me to go through and make sure that I detailed out what all of our defaults should be, what options should be even be made available, and understand of which projects we should even include. So thankfully, we were able to find other awesome open source projects out there called Yet Another Benchmark Script. And then we also have CF Speed Test, which is very helpful in what we're trying to achieve. And then I also even had the opportunity to go through and come up with certain commands to run to make sure that we're pulling all of the information correctly from the system so that we can display it within the environment up here. And when you go through and hit Start Benchmark, it moves to our benchmarks page. Now, this comes with a very special challenge because we need to make sure that this entire application runs under one container. So I didn't want to create another container that runs things like Laravel Reverb or anything like that. We want to make sure that we're updating and running this in real time and that we're seeing the progression through the tests and be able to see if there's any errors or when things are completing. And as always, I've included every single detail for Dan to pick up and understand what commands need to be run, which flags need to be set, and very helpful things to speed up his development. When we get to the PHP test, this is going to be very interesting because we're going to run a lot of this through like a CSV test. And then we will do random reads, random updates, random deletions, and just see on how we can get Laravel to perform. And when it gets to the results page, we want to show this create, read, update, delete view that shows operations per second, a nice standardized number. And then we can see different details about the performance of the machine so that you can get an understanding of when you go sign up with host A and host B, you can kind of do an apples to apples comparison and see and how that is actually behaving in the real world of Laravel itself. Now, we'll also allow other cool things where you can share it on social media. You can see all of your results to download them, and then you can run them again. Now, the most important thing is that we want this to be a very community involved process. So we're going to just start off with this 0.1 release, and we're going to make it very easy for other people to propose other tests to run in here. So we want to make sure that we have a contributing.md file and make it very easy for people to pick up, pull a PR, and start running with it and see if we can make this project even better. And the other thing that we want to do too is we want to make sure that although that we will make it very easy where you can just run a single Docker command and run this on any host, We also want to make sure that we're supporting the non-Docker scenarios so you can even compare between running Laravel in Docker and running Laravel without Docker. Hopefully you're excited about what's to come with BenchKit. Follow along as we build this more in public. We hope sharing our creative process was valuable as well. We understand everybody takes a different approach, but we're very curious to hear on how you organize your projects as well. Be sure to leave a comment. We'd love to learn more. If you enjoyed our approach, we're also available for hire. We can apply these same principles to your own projects to make sure that you're organized and executing software development in the least expensive way possible. Join us in Discord if you have any questions. We'll put all the links below. I'll be sure to see you next time. Thanks.